Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. It's kitchen time. Bit of an assortment this time. You can tell what time of day it is by whether it's a cup or a glass. Although in this weather, I normally drink coffee in the mornings. I have one after lunch and then that's it with the coffee. But in theory that can change now because I've switched. I haven't switched the brand of coffee I use, but I've bought some decaf of the same brand and I'm now drinking half and half. And quite honestly, I can't taste the difference. So what's the point of stonking the caffeine in there, which is no good for me, I'm sure, at my age, because it does the blood pressure thing and everything, although I don't think I've got bad blood pressure. But nonetheless, why push your luck? And so I thought I'll try half and half, and if I can't taste the difference, we'll up the non-caffeine stuff until we get to non-caffeine coffee. So if I can still enjoy the coffee, because it is the taste I drink it for, without the caffeine, well, why not? But between there and starting on perhaps some wine in the hot weather, it's very tempting to start on the old chilled white wine, you know, at lunchtime. And the trouble is with that, by the end of the day the bottle's gone. That's too much wine for one day, even though it's only a light white wine, nonetheless. So I might have a chilled beer instead for the afternoon to tide me over. Because Wimbledon started, it's tennis time, which means I can watch some sport that is not football. Well, I must admit I have watched a bit of the football, but not a lot. Right, assortment today. I've got Hercoglossom keikis that have been acclimatising, and I noticed today there's a bit of black on some of the roots. So now's a good time to get at them, so we'll pop those up. These are Harveyanum keikis and a bit of a Restrepia that fell off, which I'll have a look at and see whether it's worth trying to pot it or not. But the Harveyanums are earmarked for somebody, so I need to get them in a pot and get them acclimatised to the pot before they disappear to somebody else. This is my Stardust Firebird. Now my own version of this I've dumped because it's not growing very well. And this isn't growing very well either because it's in such large bark that the roots won't hydrate. This is a young plant, so I'm going to treat that like a seedling. So that's going to get a mix of bark and moss to get it going and get a decent root system established. And then sometime down the line, when it's an established plant with a good root system, it can then be potted into something that will allow the wet-dry cycle for that type of dendrobium, because Stardust Firebird is classed as a nobile. Yeah, of course it is. If you have a look at the makeup of this, there's not a lot of nobile in it, quite honestly, but it has got unicum in it, and a fair bit of that, I think. And then the other thing I want to do is this Rodriguezia liana. It's finished blooming now, the two spikes are finished. My bulbs are desiccated, my leaves are badly desiccated. I'm hoping I can recover this. It's not hydrating. It's chucking out loads of aerial roots, yes, so it obviously likes some air around its roots, but there's a limit to how much I can hydrate a plant that needs more than it's getting on a mount. So that's going in a pot. So that's the task, and the only mess is this one. So we'll get this one out of its, that's just going to fall out basically. Yeah, I thought it would. So not too much mess, and then we can see what we've got. This is pieces, I thought it might be. Now that's a piece with no viable roots, a keiki that's too young. That's highly unlikely that would take, but you can put it in some water and see if it will grow some roots. There's no point in potting that piece. This is just lots of little pieces basically, probably keikis. Now this one has not got good roots. It's got a keiki not far away from the base of the plant, and it has got a little new growth just starting, so that might be worth having a go. This, however, is a perfectly good piece. This has got some active viable roots, good, with active growing tips, so that's a nice piece. And it does have a new growth from the base that's pushing on. Not a lot of life on the other cane, but that's support for this one while it gets its roots fully established. But that's not a bad little root system for a piece that size. So that's good. And then what have we got here? What we've got here is a cane without a good root system, but it's pushed out some new growths, some of which have got bugs on. We'll deal with them in a minute. And it has just started to push some roots out, so we can pot that piece. So I've got some pieces to pot. As I say, there's no point in potting that. Yeah, these roots have had it. And there's no sign of life at the base, so there's not a lot of point in trying with that piece. Don't like struggling for nothing. So we've got some pieces there to deal with and a little bit of mess to clear up. Put my tag to one side, and then we'll actually I'll get that plant off the mount in case it makes a mess, because there's going to be some moss and stuff. Let's just get the ties off. It's a shame actually, because this was growing incredibly well, but this season, probably a little bit to do with the effort of blooming, it's just decided that it's not hydrating enough, and it's by quite a bit. It's not like a little bit desiccated, it's quite a lot. So I need to deal with this, and this has been on my list to deal with for so long. Quite honestly, I did put it off because it was in bloom, and that was a silly idea. This business of avoiding disturbing plants because they're in bloom can have consequences like this. The plant ends up so desiccated it's going to be a struggle to get it to recover again. I don't know how easy it's going to come off, because a lot of these roots did attach, but a lot of the newer roots are aerial. So I've got a combination of what were attached roots, soon to be definitely not attached, and there are signs of new ones growing at the base. There's going to be a lot of aerial ones. This is going to go in a wholly clay pot, because by definition and by its nature it obviously likes an awful lot of air around its roots. We've got more on the back of the blinking mount than on the front. And it's coming off slowly but surely. There will be a bit of damage, but it's the new roots I'm hoping to maintain. God, some of these do grab old. There we go. I didn't leave too much behind, so most of it came off okay. Now this needs all the bits of tie got off. Some of the roots have even attached to that. These are grabby roots on this one. They do catch hold quite easily. The moss is getting a bit old, not too bad. That's not the problem. Could have been the wood. Might not have liked the wood. Wood, bark, whatever you want to use, doesn't last forever, same as the moss doesn't. You can get a perfectly good piece of bark and your plant attaches to it and it absolutely loves it, and then you, over a period of time, you start thinking that plant's not doing as well as it used to. So a lot of the new roots are going up against my bark and not working. The root tips are stopping. Yeah, well, that's the time to think about the wood might be the problem rather than anything else. Right, that, I'm just going to take those two spikes off. I know that's not a sterilised pair of scissors, but spikes are going to die back dramatically anyway, so not a problem. And quite honestly, before I deal with that, I'm going to go and throw that in the Vander bucket, and for once in its life it's going to get fully hydrated, and then I'll deal with it in a minute. So and the keikis are just a matter of getting myself some pots sorted out, get some media and have a clear up of the mess, so I'll be back. Okay, the Hercoglossum, I've split those into two, so there'll be the largest one and two others with not such good roots, but hopefully they'll pull on in one pot, and then the four others in the other pot, one of which, that's a new root, I was going to say, one of which has started a new cane. So I always treat keikis like seedlings, yeah? So the mix I give them is the mix I would use for seedlings, and seedlings should not dry out, they should be grown on. They've got young root systems and they're in a different position to adult plants. I mean, this is the type of dendrobium that is a feed and water well in the growing season type anyway, so it shouldn't really be drying out much, not in a pot anyway. It dries out on my mount because it's got no flipping choice. But anyway, I always treat keikis like seedlings, so in this case they're going to get small bark with some moss, and that should keep those roots nicely hydrated while they push on. And then come next year, when they start pushing out their new growths, the chances are these won't still be with me, they'll be with somebody else. And that's the time to think about how you want to grow it on, whether you do want it to be in an airy mix in a pot and grow it upright, or whether you want it on a mount and allow it to dangle. But these are your choices. The plant will grow either way. It's not compulsory to put dendrobiums on mounts. I just have most of mine that way, except the Latorias and the Phalaenopsis, because that's how I like to grow them. And there's some other types I've got in pots as well, so they're not all on mounts. The long cane dendrobiums, I go for the mounts simply because they're not easy to keep upright in a pot. You work hard trying to keep the pot stable, and quite honestly it's a lot of mucking about. By putting them on a mount, they can dangle away to their heart's content. They're nice and secure, and they adapt accordingly. Right, rinse my hands off. Ugh. Right, two easy ones. I'm not putting any crocking in these pots because they're so flipping small, and the roots are going to go down in the bottom. And a pot this size is going to dry. It's not going to have a nasty soggy layer in the bottom. Right, we've got 4 here, varying size roots. The important thing is to get all the bases at the same height so that they can sit right on the top. Now I've got a couple of long roots that should bend. Yes, they will. As I say, these have been dunked in water for a while. And then I'm just going to hold them at the height I want them, all of them, one slip there, yeah, and then just put the media in. I don't want any air gaps, but there's so few roots, chances of any air gaps are pretty slim, I would suggest. Come around here, from the other side. Now these roots are half and half. They will bend to a degree. If you push your luck too far, they will snap. So they are semi-flexible, I'll call them. But they're not real bendy to the point where you can really compact the media without snapping anything. Now, are they all going to stand upright? If I tuck that one behind that one, nope. You're going to be an awkward one. Actually, it is quite upright. And these roots should take off reasonably well now. Just put a bit of bark around the top without any moss. That'll just help them be more secure without keeping the base of the plant soggy. And then that will get watered in and they'll do fine. So that's those. Notice I've actually come down quite a bit from the top of the pot. That again will stop them staying too wet too long, yeah, rather than having the pot full right up to the brim, which gives it an extra ½ inch of media, which with a young set of roots, you know, dendrobiums in pots do like to be cozy, which means their roots should be filling the pot. Well, these little plants haven't got enough roots to fill the pot yet. Give them a chance. You've got to get going a bit first. Right. The one that had the bit of mould showing on the, that's going to be a nuisance, because like it or not, the cane needs to go upright and the new growth's pointing out sideways. So to get the new growth upright, that's going to have to go like that, and it's not going to work. Yeah. So I'm going to put it as close to the top of the media as I can. I don't want to lose these roots, and see if it will push up through the media. That's a lot of roots on that one too. So this is going to be not quite so straightforward. And this, I'm going to let that one dangle over the edge of the pot, quite honestly. That's what it wants to do, well, let it do it. And we'll get the new growth to come up through the middle there somewhere. Put some media down in behind there, stop it flopping back against the edge again. Yeah, you're going to be awkward, aren't you? The roots are so long, they're sort of springy. They're trying to push the whole cane out of the top of the pot. And this one will have to go in a little bit deeper, just to make sure that cane is safe. Very easy, you put a handful of media in, start pushing around with your thumb and your fingers and forget that just below the surface is a new growth. Well, and to pay attention to where new growths and new root tips are at the base of the plant. So it's always very tempting to press against the base of the plant to get it to stand upright. Well, those are the places you're going to snap bits off. So I'm being very, very careful about that new growth. Hopefully, when I let go, that cane is going to dangle, but not be loose, if you know what I mean. It's dangling naturally. And just get a bit more round the base, over the top of a couple of roots that were exposed. I'm just taking a little bit of the media off from the other two canes. I wonder if I can lift them slightly without pulling the whole thing out. Yep, just enough to get the base clear. And then one immediately flops over, it would do, wouldn't it? I think that will do. And that's watered in. It's got hardly any roots on it, that piece, that's the problem. That'll have to do. It'll have to grow some roots and settle itself in. So that's those two done. Right, get me glass back now. Alright, what's the best thing to do next? I don't want to do the stardust yet. Let's have a look in this, see what we've got in here. As I say, this is Harveyanum, and these are earmarked. Somebody asked for these a long time ago. What have we got? Oh, hello. What's that? Do you know, I've got no clue what that is whatsoever. Well, it's a Cattleya type. Some sort. Oh, I've got no idea where that came from or what it is. Oh well. I'll deal with that in a minute. And then I've got this piece of Restrepia that broke off, and it has got a new growth. I don't know how close I can get. Right next to the left of my thumb is the new growth. You see the patterning? So it has got a new growth, and these are viable roots, so it is worth potting that, even though that leaf's manky. It's got a new one coming, so we will pot that. Right, I need to go and get some more pots and sort some stuff out. Right, so let's get this little Restrepia done. Basically small bark and moss, but heavy on the moss. These do not like to dry out. The easiest way to do that is stonk up the moss. At the end of the day, if you've added moss to a mix, it doesn't really matter how much you've added, it's going to break down. Yeah, so your repotting will come round probably at exactly the same time, whether you've got lots of moss or only a little bit. So you just as well get the, you know, the medium right for the type of root system you're looking at. And these do not like to dry out under any circumstances, so I'm going a bit heavy on the moss. And the tiniest pot you can imagine. Didn't know I had any that small. This one I am going to start with just bark in the bottom. Yeah. And then we will see what we can do. I need to get this sitting at the top. It does mean I'm going to have to bend the roots down a bit to get them in the media, but I want that new growth just sitting on the surface. So I'm going to have to hold it and then try and feed the media around enough to push the roots downwards a bit at a time, because they are a bit wayward, these roots. Some are pointing upwards. Just got to go very, very careful with that new growth. I didn't even know that was there, so it's Got to be worth looking after now I know I've got one. Very resilient roots on Restrepias. They look all flimsy, but they're actually quite strong. They'll bend quite well before they get to their point where they snap, and you can push against them quite hard. They'll take it. Not bad at all. Even though they look flimsy, they're quite strong. I'm not going to pack this in like concrete. It's a young plant effectively, and I've got my there just about. Yeah, you can just see the new growth poking up in the middle. Yeah, so it's sat on the surface, and all bar one root that's decided to stick up in the air are in the media. So I haven't got a clue which plant that came off of. So again, that's a surprise because I forgot. I should really start labelling pieces that fall off of plants or keikis that I take off, because I do tend to forget which are which. Now the two bits of Harveyanum, they're not bad. They've got good sturdy roots on them. No sign of new growths yet. Yes, there is. There is a sign of a new growth on that piece. Not on that one yet, but they're both going in the same pot to grow on, basically. And I have seen Harveyanum growing in a pot quite successfully as far as its growing was concerned, but it was a very wayward looking plant with canes flopping over the edge, some sticking out at right angles and a few sticking up in the air. So it ends up being straggly grown that way, and quite honestly mine's mounted, and even that one looks straggly because it does tend to have that look about it. But certainly as a young plant, the canes need to sort of grow on in a more upright fashion initially, and then again, as I said, down the line, somebody else's decision as to whether it stays in a pot or heads on into a mount. Remembering that the transition from a pot to a mount needs to be thought about. If something was potted in a very airy mix and you mount it and surround it with soggy moss, it's quite a dramatic change of media for the plant, and sometimes they'll object and sulk. So we're careful with both instances here, because these are brittle roots. They do not like to bend one little bit, they snap. They'll branch, you know, it's not a total loss if you break one. They will branch out again, but it's better if they don't break in the first place. So what I'm doing here is I'm tucking the media in around the roots and then slowly lifting the plant as I go. Rather than try and force the media down past the roots, I'm lifting the roots up through the media. As I get more media in there, I can raise the plants. That way the media just drops down around those roots. I don't know whether these two are going to stay upright. What's that new growth? Gotcha. That's what I say, it's incredibly easy when you're trying to pack your media down to forget that you've got a little new growth poking out. And then you look round and there's this little piece of green sitting on top of the media, and you think, what's that? Oh, that's my new growth. Or was my new growth, as it happens. Yep, that'll do. What did I say that was? That was Harveyanum, wasn't it? Let's put the label back in. Get in there. Right, that's that one. And Hercoglossum can go in one of the pots, the label, and I'll do another one for the other one. The Restrepia doesn't need a label because I don't know what it is. Another dirty glass to wash up. Right, what does that leave to do? That leaves the... I've lost the plant. Oh, I chucked it in the Vander bucket, didn't I? I was just going to say I've lost a plant. How can you lose a plant in a small area like this? Right, the next one to do is the Stardust Firebird, so not quite sure what I'm going to do that with that little piece of Cattleya. That's got some nice little roots on it. It deserves potting or sticking on a small mount. I could actually stick that on a little mount, couldn't I? Yeah, may do. Thinking about that one, as I said, I don't remember that piece falling off of the plant. I can't even remember where that came from. Do you know, that might actually be a bit of Makei. Oh well, it'll be a surprise for somebody anyway. Grow on. Right, I'll be back again when I've got some more stuff sorted. Right, let's get Stardust Firebird done. Needs a slightly larger pot this time because of the number of pieces going in there. It's an air cone pot, so I have cropped the bottom. No point in bunging up all the holes of an air cone pot. Defeats the object of having one, really. And the fact that this is a deeper pot and a wider pot, it will take longer for these roots to start to fill the pot up. So there is potential for getting a soggy bottom. And we don't want soggy bottoms. So crocking in the bottom will stop that wet layer occurring, as well as not bunging up the holes in the air cone itself, which helps get the air in the bottom and stops it happening in from the other angle. I don't want too much moss in this, but I want some. You know, they're young. I'm treating them as young plants rather than seedlings because some of these pieces have got reasonable roots. Now this is going to be fun trying to get... This one would not let go of those pieces of bark, and there's no point in trying to detach that bark. There was nothing wrong with the bark they were in, these pieces were in, it was just too big. So the roots had, you know, they were drying far too fast and not growing well into the media because they weren't growing into anything. Now I'm going to get both of those older canes hanging out the same side of the pot, and then if I need to, I'm really not sure it's worth putting that in the pot, quite honestly. Those are two nice plants. I'm going to put that piece in, if it'll stay there on its own and stand upright, but that piece, I don't think, the keiki that's on it is weak, the leaves are not good. No, leave it out. It'll only cause a problem if it dies because it'll be in amongst all the other stuff. So that's a nice little bunch of plants, yeah, to grow on in a pot. So let's do that. And at the last minute I'll plonk that in there and see if it will stand upright. It may or may not. We shall see. Started with a bit more in the bottom, really. Never mind, we'll get it there eventually. I'm hoping these two older canes may just lean on the pot, which sounds odd, but that would actually make it relatively stable if they just leant on the side of the pot. I think I will. I'll just let them lean on the pot. They can just stay there. And then providing I don't keep waggling it around and knocking them, which will easily uproot the whole blinking lot that's in the pot and disturb all the roots. I think we've nearly got enough now. Still see some roots, but I always try and get the plant stable before I put the last bit of media in, because I don't want that tight. I quite like the top of the plant to be in loose media. It settles in as you water it. Right, am I going to be able to poke this silly little bit in and get it to stay there? I put it down in the middle of the plant somewhere, like that. Then it'll either grow or it won't. Two chances, grow and don't grow. But the rest of the plant or plants will hold it upright, and that will at least give those roots a chance to start growing. And once they start growing, they'll be self-supporting. I think that's about it. Now, given that Stardust Firebird is often one of the tattiest looking plants you can ever have, that's starting off at least its life in a reasonably upright position with all the growths coming out the base of the plant. Now, there's a novelty for that one. Right keiki machine, this thing. Right, so that's that one done. That leaves the little Cattleya piece that I didn't know I had. I'll just stick that on a mount. You've seen enough mounting videos. What I'll do now is I'll shut down for a bit. I need to make sure that liana has actually hydrated as much as it's going to before I attempt to put it in a pot, and then we'll see where we go from there. So I'll be back. Right, and the last one is this Rodriguezier liana. I keep looking at that thinking, is that the new growth? It may be. This is the growth that bloomed, which is not a full-size bulb, but it was a winter growth. Nonetheless, it had 2 spikes. But what I propose to do with this is get all of the root system, because they're quite flexible, into the pot, the whole lot. Well, except for that one sticking up in the air. But I want the whole lot in the pot. Now, I've chosen a holy clay pot. Unfortunately, it's got a hell of a big hole in the bottom, so I've just spent ages searching in my big bark to try and find a piece big enough to go over that hole and stop my medium bark falling out. But I need to get enough of that in place gently so it doesn't knock that big bit out of place, and hold that still. Right, then we can think about getting the plant in. This does need air around the roots, or it wouldn't keep producing aerial roots, but nonetheless it still needs to get itself hydrated. So somewhere there has to be a happy balance, and I'm hoping that the happy balance is a holy clay pot with bark. That'll get the air around, but with the majority of the roots as they stand now, I'm going to have to put some bark in first. So I just had a horrible feeling then I hadn't turned the camera on and I was talking to myself. Not that talking to the camera is much different than talking to yourself, but that's why I don't film in the garden. The neighbours already think I'm nuts with the plant collection I've got without talking to myself in the garden. But the object is to get as many roots into the bark as possible, which when watered will stay wet longer than just aerial roots do. So it should hydrate better. It better hydrate better, because at the moment it's not hydrating anywhere near well enough. Now, the odd root hanging out I'm not particularly worried about. It's lived long enough with aerial roots in the main and survived, although it hasn't survived that well on reflection. So I'm still going to try and get as many as possible down in some media. These are quite bendy roots, so they'll take a bit of pushing around. And then I'm just going to gently lift the plant. So that it sits on the top. In theory, the next new growth is going to come out somewhere near the previous growth was, which is somewhere over this side, which is now central. So that's the bit that's now in the middle. Now I'm going to push that down hard down the side. Never going to hold this plant firm potting it like this, but it does produce new roots quite frequently. Oh. And they will latch on. Right, a bit more around the top, and that'll do. Now, I've tested this clay pot and the clay is quite soft, so it is going to take some moisture away from the plant, but that's up to me to deal with. It will need probably watering quite a lot more frequently than the rest of the holy clay pots. But then it was a mount and it was in the same frequency as the mounts were. Well, even if it needs a little bit more frequently, it still won't be as frequently as when it was on a mount. So there we go. don't think that tag's going to go in with a bent end, so easy way around that. Take the end off. Oh, we better have a point, I suppose, or it won't go in the pot, will it? There we go, something like that. I'm not likely to forget what it is, but there we go. So that's that one done. That will now have a good soak, and it will probably have another good soak later today, and another couple of soaks tomorrow. I've got to try and rehydrate these leaves. They are quite dehydrated. And just keep those roots hydrated for the time being, and hope it perks up a bit and gets on with the new growth. And if that does look like the signs of a new growth. So there we go then, another kitchen session done. Quite a few odd little jobs got out off the list there. I've still got that to deal with, but for the moment that can just go back in the glass it came out of and sit there while I think about it. I'm going to go back and have a look at the video from when the Maikei arrived and I potted it, because in theory part of that video will show this piece breaking off, and if that's true then that is a Maikei, in which case it's well worth trying to get to grow. So see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.